Now I'm ready.
Okay.
Start over, I'm sorry.
All right. So in here I have some pink oyster mushrooms growing on straw. And in here, the white elm oyster mushrooms growing on straw. And if we open the lid, you can see how it looks like cotton nearly with the healthy mycelium growing on the top.
How hard is it to do this, Don?
It's not difficult once you get used to it. You can buy liquid spore in a syringe for about $12 for 12 cc's. Each cc will do 1 or 2 pounds of grain. Sometimes you can get a little more than that for each cc. And then you can take a pound. It takes a pound will do about 2 buckets of grain. So it's not too difficult, but you have to sterilize the grain, put it grow it in a sterile container, and then you have to transfer it into straw that has been pasteurized. And I use a cold pasteurization method using lime to make the water alkaline. Sometimes add a little bit of hardwood ash to it to make it even more alkaline. That kills most of the bacteria. And then the mycelium takes over the straw and it'll produce its thing. So it takes about 3 weeks to make the grain spawn, and another 2 to 3 weeks to, once you inoculate the straw, to grow it out again. So you're looking at 5 or 6 weeks from the time you inoculate your grain till you get mushrooms out of your straw. That's the method I use.
How many different varieties do you grow?
Primarily 2. I guess I have 2 different varieties of oyster mushrooms, but I have shiitake mushrooms growing as well. Plus we have some lion's mane, which is my absolute favorite, but I have a difficult time growing them here, because I don't have a dedicated room that has refrigeration and humidity control that I would need to grow that mushroom. Okay. If we're further north, it might grow better.
Okay. Well, take us through your yard here.
Okay. So we want to go over here to
That'll be fine.
Okay.
Gorgeous. Hosta and Solomon seal. Wow. Look how big that Solomon seal is.
Mm-hmm. I think my wife took it from one plant and transferred it and really maneuvered it.
Now here's the entrance to Don's garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's made for real tall people.
No, it's perfect for me. Perfect for me.
And here we have a little seating area underneath our pink, lovely pink rose, a climbing rose bush. And it also is intermixed with some grapevines.
I love the way you interact. You get flowers and plants together that we're going to be able to eat. That's a good idea.
Well, the flowers help to attract pollinators and attract beneficial bugs. So I think it's important to do that. Mm-hmm. In here we have turmeric. No, this is ginger. Sorry, this is ginger. And then along here is a plant that we really like, which is a spinach substitute, Malabar spinach they call it. It's the climbing spinach, and it's good either fresh or you can cook it. And then we have an assortment of herbs here. We even have a pineapple. We just take the pineapple tops and put them in. And last year, we got absolutely the sweetest pineapple I've ever tasted from growing one of these on its 2nd year it produced. This year we haven't had one produce again. And then here's some sage and oregano, thyme, parsley. This is moringa, which is they call it the horseradish tree in the Philippines. It's one of the miracle trees, high in protein, a very beneficial plant. You can eat the leaves and the buds. Which one is that one? Stevia. Stevia, okay. Well, and here's the stevia here. It's not very much. And chives.
And there's the lemon verbena over there.
Oh, which one? Is this the lemon verbena here?
That's longer one, that one.
This
That
one. The lemon verbena, and that must be a basil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Two different
Love to
kinds.
smell it.
Oh, you
Yeah.
should smell that one.
The
Yeah, this
lemon?
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
smell that one.
Try that one right there.
Oh my,
It smells so good.
it sounds great.
Fresh.
Oh, and I'm going to step back so I can get a good photograph
Okay.
of your gourds.
Yes, some gourds and squash growing on a cattle panel, 2 cattle panels that are made into a tunnel.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry I moved you from this. Explain this.
Okay.
Tell us about this. I'm
Well,
jumping
there's
the gun.
some radishes, and this is rosemary, and what is this? This is garlic?
Garlic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, society garlic, right?
And some Thai basil.
And some peppers, so we've an assortment of different plants in here in these little raised beds. And luckily I got a nice upland cypress tree and was able to cut that and make our raised beds out of mostly upland cypress, and they've lasted. They've been here 5 years, maybe 6.
Oh, I want to get a good shot of this.
Okay.
He has kale growing in here,
Yeah.
and look at this lettuce. I keep looking for the bugs, but I cannot find them.
That one, the bugs don't eat them. I don't know why.
And look at these gourds.
And we needed the shade for this heat in order to grow this. And this is called longevity spinach here, which we have not grown enough to really eat, but that's a longevity spinach, which is supposed to lower blood pressure and be a very healthy spinach. Of course, there's some Swiss chard and onions. More of the ginger over here.
Tell us about this. That's
This they call opo. It's a long,
Snake
gourd like a snake.
Snake gourd.
Oh, snake gourd, but they also use it. It's edible, so it gets about the size of a baseball bat. This one's a little small yet. It will get larger, and then we'll cut it up and eat it. It's a very mild squash, and of course kale.
Mm-hmm.
That's been here since the winter.
Wow. Look at these.
Yeah, we'll
Look
use
great.
those for bird nests. Originally, we thought they were all this opo, but the seed, wherever she got her seeds from, they wasn't.
Well, that
dependent.
happens to us all the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't packed right.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Oh, and look what we have here. Tell us about this.
This is, both these plants are calamus, which is a lemon. As you notice, these small lime-like plants here,
Let's see.
lime-like fruit,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sourer than a lime, but it's wonderful, and we get fruit from it all year long.
So
We
what do
almost
you do
always
with
have
it in the wintertime?
Well, we bring it into the house,
Mm-hmm.
put it in the greenhouse first until the temperature gets to the 20s or lower. Once it's in the 20s, we'll bring it into the house. Otherwise, we're afraid it would freeze out.
Mm-hmm. But it can stay outside until the 20s?
Well, put it in the greenhouse.
In the greenhouse,
until
sorry.
the 20s. Once we have a frost, we'll put it in at a light frost. We'll put it in the greenhouse. If it's predicted to get below 20, we're definitely bringing it in the house.
Okay, is this the same plant?
Yes, both of these are the same. And we have another one we've grown from the seed out of these. So you can grow them from seeds. And of course we have a few okra in here. Not enough. We eat more okra than what we grow. So I end up having to buy it. And some peppers. And I think that the marigolds help. First of all, they're beautiful. And secondly, they help provide beneficial bugs for our garden.
Good. Tell us about this. What is this?
That's a bitter melon, which is used a lot of Asians use it in their cooking. We don't have any fruit on this particular plant, and they're still small. These came up from seed. We didn't plant these. They came up from seed from plants that we had last year. And it does have a bitter taste. We usually eat it with scrambled eggs, but it's good if you're anemic. It helps with anemia. It's also a very good plant for diabetics, apparently. Very good fruit for that. And here we have cherry tomato that is another volunteer, another wild plant right here, the cherry tomato, we haven't planted these. They've been growing since before we moved to this property 15 years ago.
Well, that's a beautiful plant.
Yeah, and I do not know the name of that flowering plant. My wife may know.
It's gorgeous.
And here's a small planter that we put some strawberries in and some peppers.
Well, Don, tell everybody about the planter, how you did that.
Okay. This is made from a pallet. However, we were looking for a pallet that has HT stamped on the side of it. You'll find HT meaning heat treated. So when you find that, you know there's no chemicals in it. And I use a saw and cut it apart, and then we use screws to put it in. It's better if you pre-drill it. But if you try to drive nails in it, it's a hard wood.
Yeah.
And the problem is, nails manufactured here in this country are mainly manufactured for softwoods. So if you want to drive a nail into a hardwood, get a concrete nail and you can drive it in. But this wood tends to split, so you're better off drilling it and put a few screws in it. But it's usually you can get them for free. You should get them for free. And this is turmeric here. It's grown more than a year here. We happen to have it in a container, but we have grown it in the ground. And turmeric and ginger can be overwintered here and not have a problem.
You don't have to take it inside?
No, we do not take it inside.
Well, I leave my ginger outside, but I didn't know.
The turmeric, too, can be left outside because she had a huge clump, probably 4 or 5 pounds, that she divided and used some of it in the house, and my wife put the rest of it in here and started this. And here's lemongrass, which also we've overwintered by covering it with paper and then putting a thick layer of mulch on top.
Do you cut it back before you
Yes, cut it
back?
off to the ground, and usually we freeze some of it, or maybe we'll take some of it to the Calf Killer Brewing Company. Like this year, I only have 2 plants. Before I've had 5 or 6, so they'll need almost every bit of it we have, I think, to season one of their. I don't know how many gallons he makes. I haven't asked Dave Sergio to know how many gallons he makes out of it, but I give him some. He gives me some beer usually, and of course basil which is a good companion plant with your tomatoes. This is the
It's good to eat it
purple
with
basil.
it too, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah, and wonderful for making is it pesto? Pesto. And there's a baby calamansi that we grew from seed, and there's another one here, and then there's 2 limes. So our little sunroom area is going to be filled up. My son's classroom area will be filled up. This is a heirloom tomato. I don't know what she calls it, sunshine, or what the name of the heirloom is. And down here we have sweet potatoes, a different variety. We have about 5 varieties of sweet potatoes here. And the sweet potato tops can be used as a green. And over here is called cancon, or Chinese water spinach, which is really good with mushrooms. It's a really good spinach, and we've got a few rows of it. So
Can you cook this spinach like, say make cream spinach with it too?
Oh,
Is
yes.
that good as well?
I would think so. I've not tried it, but it has a very spinach flavor. And
Okay, well
it's
then I would
wonderful,
think it
mild.
would work.
Yes. And then over here is a good example. This shows you the HT that you'll find. There's 2 places here it says HT, meaning that it's heat treated. That's what that stands for on your pallets. And I made another one here along with another, just using wire. This happens to be 1x1 wire, but it wouldn't matter what size you use. And then I used my spent straw after growing the mushrooms in it, and put a little bit of, my son has a pet rabbit, so we put rabbit manure in there and some sheep manure. And I've started this, and it's only been in here a little over a month. So we have some potatoes and sweet potatoes growing in there.
How many potatoes do you think you'll get out of there?
I don't know. This is the first time I've grown it, but I anticipate we'll get a good amount of the sweet potatoes. I don't know how many of the Irish potatoes, as most people call them. And then here we have Pakistani mulberry. I wish I had not bought the Pakistani mulberry because it tends to die down at the ground.
Oh.
So hopefully, and we didn't get the mulberries. It's a really extremely long, about 3 inches long mulberry, which I love mulberries, but if it's not going to produce, it's not going to do us any good.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't produce if it dies down at the ground. Now here's a standard Illinois mulberry, they call it, I believe. And this one, if we can compete with the birds, we'll get a few mulberries from it. This year the frost caught part of it, so it wasn't overproductive. And then over here we have a Chicago fig. First we have a banana, one of those bananas that lasts fairly long. And the Chicago fig, the only problem I have with it is it tends to die down the ground. It does come back. And we've got a lot of fruit. If you start looking here, you see a lot of fruit on this particular tree. And the reason is I pinch off the terminal bud. Now you have to be careful when you're doing that because you don't want this sap can be quite irritating, and some people are very sensitive to it. So be careful doing that. You might want to use a pair of nippers to cut that off. But that will increase your production. It tends to stimulate the tree and make them produce earlier. And the problem with figs here is they produce so late that the frost gets them unless you tend to do that. So
Good to know.
And of course we have some zucchini squash here and some Ikebana eggplant, the long thin eggplant. And then in with the berry plants, these are raspberries here. We have melons and both watermelons and muskmelons growing underneath them. And some big beautiful sunflowers.
Oh, sunflowers. Tell us about the corn here. It's a little different from old southern corn.
Yeah, this is the very small ears. Well, I don't know whether we have, here's one of the ears here that you see in the Chinese restaurants. Now this one will let it grow to seed. But it's those baby corn that you get.
Corn.
Yeah, the baby corn. Our apple tree is eaten up, it looks like. Not good production on the apples. But the pears, if we get up here and start looking at the pears are easier to grow here. They're not as troubled by pests. I think we have some blight here, some fire blight on the tree, but I'll try to control that some.
So you're 100% organic, right?
As much as I can be. It's not 100%, but very, very
90%
close.
probably?
Yeah, 95 probably.
Wow, look at this. The pears, even down low, so I could pick them myself. That's neat.
Yeah, you could pick a couple of gunny sacks full. I'm sure you could get 500 pounds
I think you
without
could.
climbing.
And here's some beautiful flowers.
This is she calls it a rehab garden. This used to be our large compost area. And we have turned it into a flower garden with a little seating area.
Really nice. I'm gonna turn it off.
Okay.